You're not overlooked because you're not good at one is ready to face that reflection. In analytical psychology, Jung called this projection an unconscious process where people attribute traits, emotions, or motives they can't accept in themselves to someone else. We often hear about this with negative traits like anger, jealousy, or greed. But projection works with positive qualities too. When someone can't recognize their own kindness, sincerity, or trust, they may view those traits in others with suspicion, even discomfort. So your kindness, however honest, might unintentionally stir up their inner insecurities. They're not reacting to you, but to what you represent, perhaps a version of themselves that once trusted and got hurt, or a part of them that once wanted to live kindly, but was dismissed as naive. When they look at you, they don't just see a person, they see a reminder, a wake-up call to something they've buried. This insecurity can show up subtly, a cautious glance when you help them, a joke with a hint of contempt, or a sudden coldness after you reach out. Kind people, unaware of this psychological pattern, often take it personally. But you need to understand, this resistance isn't about something you did wrong. It's a sign of unresolved tension within them. In environments where giving always comes with conditions, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Be smart, don't let anyone use you. Pure kindness can look suspicious. People may silently wonder, what's the catch? Or, there must be a reason behind this. In such a mindset, kindness seems strange, and the person showing it seems even stranger. Picture this. At work, you see a colleague struggling, so you quietly take on part of their load so they can rest. The next day, instead of gratitude, they keep their distance, not because they didn't notice your kindness, but because it triggered something they've buried, a belief that they don't deserve help, or worse, that accepting help means they're inadequate. Your gesture, instead of feeling like a gift, felt like a reminder that they aren't strong enough on their own. There are also people who've grown used to masks and strategies, When they meet your sincerity, they feel exposed. Like a light shining on something they'd rather keep hidden, they may project motives onto you. She's being fake. He's trying to look good. But these aren't objective judgments, they're fear speaking through defense mechanisms. In these moments, their rejection isn't a verdict on your worth. It's a way of protecting their emotional safe zone. So no, the solution isn't to stop being kind. It's to understand what's really happening, so you don't spiral into self-doubt. When you realize that someone's negative reaction often says more about their own unresolved wounds than about you, you won't be shaken so easily. That doesn't mean you must tolerate everything, but it means you'll know when to stay and when to step back. Kindness should continue, but paired with clear awareness. Here's a simple but powerful practice. When someone reacts disproportionately, pause. If you offer a small favor and they respond with coldness or sarcasm, don't rush to explain or defend. Just note to yourself, this reaction isn't about me. That pause protects you from absorbing pain that isn't yours. You can use this awareness in close relationships too. Say you give a small, thoughtful gift to a friend, and they suddenly grow distant. You did nothing wrong, but perhaps the gift touched a hidden wound. Maybe they feel unworthy of kindness, or were once hurt after receiving something similar. Your gesture stirred a memory they weren't ready for. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to make them understand. You just need to stay calm and not assume their withdrawal is your fault. Living with kindness doesn't mean endlessly giving, no matter the cost. Jung emphasized that no one becomes whole without facing their shadow. And sometimes, that shadow isn't just the dark within, but the inability to receive light when it arrives. Some reject kindness because they don't feel worthy of it. Others because it reminds them of what they once lost. And some simply because they're not ready to give in return. Everyone carries their own history, and not all histories leave space for kindness to land without resistance. So what should we do? First, don't change who you are just to avoid being misunderstood. Kindness is a choice, and it only matters if it's made consciously, not to win approval. Second, practice separating others' reactions from your self-worth. When someone rejects you, resist the urge to ask, "What did I do wrong?" Instead, ask, "Could I have touched something they weren't ready to face?" That shift in question helps you keep your peace and your dignity. And finally, remind yourself of this. Kindness isn't something to prove. It's something to live by. When you no longer need to be understood, you move through life more freely. When you stop waiting for recognition, you start to see more clearly who truly appreciates you. Because sincerity, even when dismissed, doesn't vanish. It settles within you like solid ground. And when you meet the right people in the right places, it flows again, effortlessly. If your kindness has ever been misunderstood, remember, it's not a sign that you need to change your nature. It's a sign that you need to protect it better. Kindness doesn't hurt people. It's the lack of awareness around how to use it that makes us vulnerable. In the next section, we'll explore a deeper layer. When your kindness doesn't just unsettle individuals, but challenges the very norms of a culture that prizes detachment, cleverness, and control. When being kind becomes disruptive, not just to one person, They're a living reminder of a version of ourselves we've left behind. That's why the resistance you face isn't because you're wrong. It's society's way of defending the values it's chosen to keep and avoiding the ones it's rejected. Your kindness, in that context, is a gentle disruption, but enough to shake the collective assumptions. No one likes to be reminded of what they once gave up. You might have felt out of place in a crowd, not because you're too kind, but because you're honest in a space where honesty doesn't feel safe, and that touches something deep in others, not the bad, but the real, forced into hiding. Picture this. You're in a meeting where everyone's subtly competing for recognition. You offer sincere feedback, expecting no credit. You suggest a path forward that benefits the group, not just yourself. The result? You're overlooked. Worse, you're seen as lacking assertiveness or even pushed out of key decisions. The problem isn't the value of what you said. It's that society has conditioned people to believe, if you're not promoting yourself, you have no value. Many people live in that mindset, where everything is transactional. They grow up believing no one does anything for free, no one's kind without an agenda. When they meet someone who's genuinely kind, they don't feel peace, they feel threatened, because you're living proof of a world they don't believe exists. And to protect their belief system, they'll either have to change or reject you. Why does this matter? Because if you don't understand this mechanism, you'll start to doubt yourself. You'll think you're too sensitive, too soft, too different. And then you'll either force yourself to fit in or withdraw in frustration and exhaustion. Either way, you lose your real self. Resistance to kindness doesn't come from the surface. It's the defense mechanism of a value system built to run in the opposite direction. And if you don't recognize that, it's easy to wonder, do I need to change? Am I doing something wrong? The answer is no. The issue isn't that you're kind, it's that you don't conform to a default framework. So the solution isn't to reshape yourself to fit the majority. It's to understand that kindness, when it's conscious, is not a social flaw, but a solid choice. What you need is clarity, to stay grounded and not be swayed by outside reactions. And there are simple ways to do that. First, pause and observe. Not to judge others, but to understand the space you're in. Every environment has its unspoken values, where competition, calculation, even suspicion are considered necessary. If you enter with different values, like openness, sincerity, and patience, there will be friction, not physical, but energetic. Recognizing this helps you stop blaming yourself and start separating other people's reactions from your own self-worth. Next, stay true to how you want to live, but adjust how you express it. Kindness doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be constant. You don't have to always be available. Always keep the peace. Always listen when you're drained. Real kindness doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from staying anchored in yourself amid the chaos. A well-timed no, a necessary silence, or a conscious step back. These are also signs of intentional, aware kindness. Finally, carve out a personal space to recharge. It might be a friend who shares your values, a habit that reconnects you to yourself, like journaling, walking, or simply spending an evening in solitude. When you have that space, you stop expecting every environment to embrace your kindness, and that frees you from unnecessary disappointment or hurt. Society's pushback against kindness doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're ahead of where some people are in their self-reflection. And if you understand that, you'll gain patience, not to persuade others, but to protect your kindness from being distorted by misunderstanding or neglect. When a kind person is misunderstood, They don't need to change to be accepted. What they need is to keep living with the awareness that kindness isn't naivety. It's a clear decision in a world that often isn't. And sometimes, the quiet, steady presence of someone like that is what plants a small seed in the collective unconscious, a seed of belief that it is still possible to live truthfully without losing yourself. But to live truthfully without self-betrayal, you also need to know where your kindness comes from. Is it rooted in clarity or habit, in awareness, or a need to be seen? That question leads us to another part of the picture. What happens when kindness stops being intentional? When it slips beyond the boundaries of awareness and becomes something you do simply because you don't know how to stop? That's where we'll go next. The blurry line between compassion and self-abandonment. Number 3, too much kindness. Looks weak. It's not your kindness that makes people disrespect you. The real issue is kindness without boundaries. When you're generous without limits, people don't just misunderstand you. You start losing sight of where you stand in every relationship. Humans instinctively test each other's limits, not out of malice, but as a way of measuring who will back down, who will say no, who will stay silent and endure. If you're always saying yes, always showing up, always helping no matter how exhausted you are, then eventually you stop being seen as someone who gives. You become something expected, like a chair in the corner, always there, no thanks required. Psychologists call this the benevolence exploitation effect. People don't need to be cruel to take advantage of kindness. Sometimes they just don't see any clear boundaries, so they keep pushing. They ask for more. They expect more. And slowly, they stop appreciating you. Your presence becomes background noise, not a gift, just a given. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In that unconscious shadow, we don't just hide anger or envy. We bury strength too, the strength to pause, to say no, to protect ourselves on purpose. When we reject those parts of ourselves, we give away a crucial piece of our inner power. And whether we like it or not, the world picks up on that, often in ways that sting. Imagine you're a beautiful house, always open. People come in, eat, rest, stay the night. At first, they thank you. But without any house rules, no schedule, no boundaries, they start acting like you don't need privacy, rest, or respect. And eventually, you're drained, alone, and questioning. Is there something wrong with being kind? No, kindness isn't the problem. But kindness needs a filter, a way to know when to give, when to stop, and when to say no so you can keep something for yourself. Let me tell you a story. It's short, but it might help you see all of this more clearly. Beyond the theories, there was a man named Thomas, the kind of person everyone wants in their life. Loved by co-workers, trusted by friends, respected by neighbors. He smiled. He helped. He showed up. "I just want people to feel lighter when they're around me," he said. Sounds noble, right? But what no one knew was, Thomas couldn't sleep at night. He lay awake, haunted by a question he never dared speak. Why do I feel so small and invisible? Even though I'm so kind. He never said it out loud. But deep inside, resentment crept in. Not toward anyone in particular. Just a vague, constant sense that he was being used, overlooked, taken for granted. Sometimes, when someone dismissed his ideas in a meeting or interrupted him mid-sentence, he felt like a child again, voiceless, insignificant. One day, after an exhausting shift, Thomas agreed to help a coworker move. It was raining. He carried box after box up 3 flights of stairs, soaking wet. not a word of thanks. That night, he sat on his balcony and cried, not from fatigue, but because at that moment, he realized, I'm not doing this just because I'm kind. I'm doing this because I want to feel valued, and nobody sees that. Thomas's kindness was real, but so was the shadow behind it. The need to be acknowledged, loved, seen as important. And because he couldn't admit that to himself, he kept giving, hoping someone else would validate him. The result? A cycle of giving, hoping, hurting. Kindness turned into a quiet form of self-abandonment. This is the paradox Jung spoke of. The shadow isn't just where we hide the bad, it's where we hide the real. Our need to be respected, our right to say no, our right to be angry without shame. Many people, like Thomas, believe they're doing the right thing, but in truth, they're confusing kindness with silence, love with self-erasure, approval with self-worth. If you've ever felt resentment after helping someone, if you've ever felt dismissed but didn't understand why, then just maybe your shadow is speaking to you too, and you haven't been listening. The answer isn't to become cold or selfish. It's to face that quiet voice inside that says, I need to be seen too. From there, you can begin practicing kindness that's intentional, selective, and rooted in a strong sense of self. You don't have to become tough or distant. What you need is clarity. When someone asks for your help, you don't need to say yes right away. Give yourself a pause. Let me think about it and get back to you. That tiny sentence creates space, a buffer where you can check in with your energy and your limits. Instead of defaulting to yes, try soft boundaries. I can't help this time, but I believe you've got this. Or, I need to take care of myself today. I hope you understand. Don't wait until you're burned out to draw the line. Do it while you still have the energy, with love, with grace, and with self-respect. Another helpful step. Write down 3 things you'll stop saying yes to, starting today. Maybe, no last-minute overtime unless pre-approved. No work messages after 9 p.m. No favors when you're overwhelmed. Put that list somewhere visible. When you feel unsure, return to your kindness code. This won't be easy. At first, you'll feel guilty. You'll worry people will be disappointed. But the truth is, you're learning to protect your kindness so it doesn't get depleted, because in the end, if you don't value your kindness, no one else will. Respect doesn't come from unlimited giving. It comes from how you give, with intention, with awareness, and with limits. When people see you know where your line is, they stop treating you like a resource, and they start seeing you as a person. Only then can real respect begin. Before we move on to the final 2 reasons, I truly hope this video has been helpful. If it has, let me know by liking it. That's not just support for this channel. It's a sign that this message meant something to you. And if so, I'll keep going even deeper in the next ones. Now let's dive into the 4th reason. Number 4. Generosity can look like self-sacrifice. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this? A friend needs help moving, so you put your plans aside and show up. Next time, they ask if you can babysit for a few hours and you say yes. Then they borrow money, and you lend it without a second thought. You tell yourself, I'm just helping when I can. But then something shifts. They stop thanking you like they used to. They don't hesitate to ask anymore. One time, they even get upset because you replied to a message late. Sound familiar? That feeling of becoming someone's backup plan, always there when needed, but never truly appreciated. When you're consistently kind without setting boundaries, you don't just give, You unintentionally create an image of yourself in others' eyes. Someone who doesn't need anything, never asks for anything, and is always available. Once that image forms, every action you take is seen through that lens. You apologize for being late. They brush it off. You're always around anyway. You say you're tired? They ignore it. You're not the type to complain. Little by little, you disappear from your own story. This isn't a problem with kindness. It's a problem with generosity that isn't protected by boundaries. That kind of giving slowly turns into self-neglect. And you are the first to feel the consequences, emotionally, energetically. Without checking your wallet. Likewise, don't give emotional energy without checking your reserves, because when you're drained, very few people will notice. They're used to seeing you just fine. Learn to show up selectively, not because you're selfish, but because your presence becomes more meaningful. When you appear at the right moment, with the right energy, in the right spirit, your kindness has weight. It's no longer a reflex. It becomes a gift. Learn to disappear too. Yes, disappear from conversations that drain you, from group chats where you're always the one initiating, from roles where you're always the fixer. Sometimes, the only way to be fully seen is to step back. Someone once told me, I stopped. I stopped helping, stopped reaching out, stopped being the rock. And what surprised me most was that I finally saw who truly cared. When you stop running toward others, you begin to see who walks toward you. And that's the most valuable insight of all. When you put yourself back at the center of your own life, you're not just protecting yourself, you're building healthier relationships with the world. A world where kindness isn't taken for granted. A world where people need you, but also appreciate you. When you learn this, you stop feeling resentful when someone takes you for granted. You realize it's the outcome of a pattern you helped create, and you can change that bit by bit, by choosing to show up with intention, by relearning how to say no without guilt, by letting others see that you too need, want, get tired, and deserve love. And from there, you begin to show up, not as someone who's always available, but as someone fully present. Slowly, as you reclaim parts of yourself, you start to see a deeper truth, something hard to notice when you're always giving. The more constantly you show up, the easier it is for people to take you for granted. Not out of malice, but because we tend to overlook what's always there. In the final part, we'll explore exactly that. Why being endlessly available can lower how others value you, and how to stay kind while preserving your worth. Number 5. Being always available lowers your worth. In any relationship, whether with friends, colleagues, or family, your constant presence and unconditional availability can be misunderstood. Not because others are unkind, but due to a simple psychological truth. What is always there tends to be taken for granted. Like the familiar chair in the corner of the room, you only notice it when it's gone. Like the light bulb overhead, you only realize its worth when the room turns dark. In psychology, this is known as the scarcity effect. We value things more when they're harder to obtain. A meeting with someone who's always busy tends to feel more significant than one with someone who's always free. Advice from someone who rarely speaks often carries more weight than words from someone who's always available. It's how the human brain reacts to frequency. When something is too easy to access, we subconsciously devalue it. Not because it lacks worth, but because it stops feeling special. A friend once told me about her college group. She was the one who always organized birthdays, picked the restaurants, made the cards, and wrapped the gifts. Every year, she remembered everyone's birthday without fail. But when her birthday came around, no one did the same. Not because they didn't care, but because she had always been the caretaker. They assumed she didn't need to be cared for. Over time, she stopped feeling like an equal in the group, and more like someone orbiting on the outside, supporting, not belonging. It all began with her generosity, with kindness that had no boundaries. Kindness, when not managed, can turn into a quiet service. The receiver gets used to receiving. The giver starts to feel invisible. The kinder you are, the easier it is for people to equate your presence with availability, as if you have no needs, no limits, no reason to ever say no. That's when kindness starts losing its value. There's a common trait among people who feel unappreciated or taken for granted in their relationships. They often struggle to say no. They fear disappointing others, fear disrupting the peace, fear being seen as selfish. But ironically, that same eagerness to please makes others respect them less, not out of malice, but because people instinctively respond to boundaries. Those who set clear limits are often seen as more reliable and more respected. We often believe that being endlessly available will make people appreciate us more. But in reality, unconditional presence, without a sense of agency, can cause others to stop trying. If you're always the one texting first, making plans, checking in, eventually the other person stops feeling the need to do any of that. Not because they don't care, but because they don't have to. Kindness without boundaries can make you invisible. You're not gone, but you're no longer seen as a person with needs, limits, or values of your own. The most painful thing isn't rejection, it's being treated like background noise, present but unnoticed. This shows up even more clearly in close relationships. A wife who always manages everything, housework, meals, schedules, without expressing her own needs, can become part of the family system rather than someone her partner actively sees and cares for. Sacrifice, if not expressed intentionally, is too easily mistaken for obligation. And when that happens, love begins to lose its balance. This doesn't mean you have to stop being kind. You shouldn't silence your generosity just because others fail to appreciate it. But you must understand this. If you don't show people that your kindness is a conscious choice, they'll assume you couldn't choose otherwise. And if they believe you can't say no, they'll stop asking you if you want to say yes. You might still want to help, to listen, to be there when someone needs you. But ask yourself, are you giving because you genuinely want to, or because you feel guilty if you don't? Are you afraid that saying no will cost you the relationship? Are you afraid that if you're not always there, you'll no longer be needed? Kindness doesn't have to be a never-ending stream. It can be like a deep well, sometimes dry, sometimes in need of time to refill. And that's what gives it value. Someone who always smiles, always agrees, always shows up, makes it hard for others to see their depth. But someone who knows when to be silent, when to decline, when to step back, that person creates a kind of gravity. Others feel it, they pay attention, they respect it. The real question isn't whether you should be kind. It's whether your kindness is coming from a place of awareness. Are you choosing who receives it, or giving it blindly to everyone? Does your kindness have a shape, clear enough that others don't confuse it with self-sacrifice? Your availability is a gift, but if you leave that gift on the doorstep every day, unwrapped, with no note, no limits, people will stop opening the door. Not out of cruelty, but because that's how familiarity works. It fades into the background. That doesn't mean you need to be cold or distant. In fact, people who value their own kindness tend to give more meaningfully. They give with thoughtfulness and care, and others are more likely to feel grateful because they recognize it as a true gift. And maybe the scariest part isn't that people will stop needing you. It's that in trying so hard to always be there, you forget who you are without that role. Let your kindness carry weight. Let your presence have boundaries. Let others remember that you're there. Not because you have to be, but because you choose to be. Only then will your kindness be seen as part of your worth, not just someone else's habit. We've just walked through 5 reasons why kindness, when it lacks boundaries, can lead to being overlooked. You've seen how unconditional availability is often mistaken for obligation, how limitless generosity can make people assume you have no needs of your own, how sincere kindness, when met with insecure or defensive people, can trigger negative reactions instead of appreciation. And in a society that prizes competition and assertiveness, kindness can sometimes be misread as weakness or being out of touch. But that doesn't mean you have to change who you are. Kindness is still a powerful strength, but as Carl Jung once said, true power only arises when you become aware of the shadows, both within yourself and in others. It's those unseen parts, the ones that resist, reject, and devalue what's worthy, that often shape how people respond to your goodness. And if you're unaware of this, you might wrongly believe the problem lies with you. You don't need to stop being kind. What you need is to learn how to be kind with intention. When kindness is offered consciously, it not only avoids being undervalued, it becomes a clear expression of emotional intelligence and inner strength. So what about you? Have you ever felt overlooked simply because you were too willing? Have you ever felt your kindness made you invisible? Share your thoughts below, because your story might just help someone else find clarity on their own. And if you found value in this message, don't forget to subscribe. More grounded, honest, and practical content is on its way to you. Thank you for taking the time to listen. The journey inward isn't easy, But if you're still here, it means you're ready to go deeper. Into yourself, into the parts of life no one teaches, but everyone needs to understand. Have you ever felt like you are a living antenna, where just stepping into a room immediately makes you pick up all the emotions around you? When others are happy, the wisest empaths possess. These habits are not loud or showy, but they are powerful enough to help an empath escape the spiral of negativity, nurture pure energy, and radiate a presence that makes the world pause and listen. Are you truly ready to step into this journey, to transform sensitivity from a burden into a hidden form of power? Number 1. Cleansing invisible energy. Have you ever wondered why there are days when you do nothing physically demanding, yet your body feels drained, your spirit heavy, as if carrying the weight of the world? It's not because you are weak, but because you are an empath, someone with the ability to absorb emotional energy from the environment around them. A complaint, a burst of anger, even the tense atmosphere in a room, all seep into you like a sponge absorbing water. And by the end of the day, you feel exhausted without knowing why. But within the stream of empaths, there is a small group Jung called awakened souls. The wise ones who know that emotions, like food, must be chosen and purified. They do not allow themselves to become a dumping ground for all energetic waste, but instead practice spiritual dieting, choosing what nourishes, discarding what is toxic. This is the first secret that only the wisest empaths possess, the ability to cleanse invisible energy. Empaths are often like radios tuned to every frequency. They pick up signals from everything: laughter, tears, anxiety, anger. If a colleague walks into the room with a heavy mood, an empath immediately feels their chest tighten, even if no words are spoken. If a loved one is sad, the empath carries that sadness to bed, tossing and turning all night. This makes them easily exhausted because they have no protective boundaries. But wise empaths understand that not all energy should be kept. They know when to stop before being overwhelmed, much like someone who chooses clean food for their body. They select conversations, avoid news saturated with tragedy, turn off intense music when their soul needs quiet. More importantly, they develop personal cleansing rituals, deep breathing, meditation, or simply walking in nature to shed emotions that don't belong to them. I once knew a woman who always began her day by opening her phone and scrolling through endless headlines, accidents, epidemics, political scandals. By 7 a.m., Her mind was already filled with stress and anxiety. At work, she drowned in her colleagues' complaints. At night, she turned on the TV, letting dramatic shows and noisy broadcasts consume her last drop of energy. It was no surprise that she constantly felt exhausted, irritable, and unable to find joy. But then, in a mindfulness course, she tried something seemingly simple. In the morning, instead of her phone, she played soft meditation music and spent 10 minutes sitting with her breath. At first, the silence made her restless, but gradually she felt her body recharged with new energy. Instead of entering the day with heaviness, she began with peace. From this small shift, her inner life completely changed. Less stress, more joy, and most importantly, she was no longer a victim of the noisy world outside. Picture yourself as a river. Waters flow in from everywhere, some clean, some muddy, some fresh, some polluted. If you don't manage them, before long the river turns into a stagnant swamp. But if you know how to open channels for the dirt to flow out, let rain wash it clean, and feed it with pure springs, the river remains pristine. A wise empath is exactly that, someone who learns to manage their inner river, refusing to let anyone or anything permanently pollute it. Jung emphasized that the collective unconscious is always around us, the emotions, beliefs, and fears shared by humanity. Empaths are bridges who easily touch this collective unconscious, which is why cleansing is essential. Otherwise, they get swept into collective emotional waves and lose their own essence. Cleansing energy is not selfish. It is how the self, the true core, is preserved. Research in energy psychology also shows that humans are strongly influenced by emotional environments. Constant exposure to negative information keeps the nervous system in alert mode, releasing cortisol, the stress hormone, leading to fatigue and gloom. On the other hand, when we choose positive environments, gentle music, fresh nature, warm conversations, the nervous system relaxes and energy is restored. This proves that cleansing energy is not just a spiritual concept, but also scientifically grounded. Perhaps you too have experienced unexplained fatigue. Try this small practice. Tomorrow morning, instead of checking your phone, sit quietly for 5 minutes and ask yourself, what nourishes my soul today? It could be soft music, a page from a book, or simply a hot cup of tea. When you start choosing like this daily, your inner energy becomes clearer. You realize peace is not a luxury, but a state you can create by choice. The change doesn't need to be dramatic. Just small, steady steps gradually restore balance to your soul. Cleansing invisible energy is not a luxury. It is self-protection. Just as you wash your hands before eating to avoid germs, you must also wash your mind to avoid toxic energy. It's how you keep yourself from being dragged into the world's chaos. And when you do this, you will find yourself not only less tired, but also clearer, radiating a calm field that brings peace to others too. Are you ready to begin tomorrow morning without rushing into the news, without diving straight into the storm, but instead taking a few minutes to cleanse your soul? If yes, leave an emoji in the comments, a small commitment that you are choosing and family. This mirrors the practices of many spiritual and wise figures. In the Bible, Jesus repeatedly left the crowds, retreating to deserts or mountains to pray and be silent. He wasn't abandoning his mission, but regaining inner balance before returning to it. These disconnections reveal a truth. Even those with the greatest responsibilities need periodic separation to preserve clarity of mind and steadiness of heart. That is the moment when true strength is reborn, to walk out again with greater clarity and purer love. Disconnection also helps empaths distinguish which emotions belong to them and which belong to others. When constantly online, empaths easily confuse themselves with external energy. A phone call of complaints, tragic news, a negative message, all can plunge them into heaviness they mistake as their own. But when they stop, withdraw, and remain in stillness, they begin to see, this sadness isn't mine. This anger isn't mine. The beauty is that empathic fasting doesn't require grand gestures. It can begin with small steps. An afternoon without social media, a morning without checking messages, a weekend without heavy conversations. It is about temporarily closing the door to the outside in order to open another door, the one leading inward to peace. Carl Jung reminded us that chaos and order exist together. To find order, we must dare to leave chaos. When empaths allow themselves to disconnect, they step out of noise and glimpse hidden patterns within the soul. At that moment, they are no longer shaken by external currents, but see the bigger picture of their inner life. If you are an empath, ask yourself, when was the last time you gave yourself a day of emotional fasting? Do you dare turn off your phone for hours, letting the world continue without you? Do you dare say no to calls and messages, just to listen to your own breath? At first, you will feel uncomfortable because connection has become habit. But within that discomfort, healing begins. A wise empath knows that disconnection doesn't cut their ties to the world, it makes them clearer. They return to friends, family, and work with fresh energy, no longer tired or resentful. And when present with others, they can truly listen, because they have already listened to themselves first. In today's age where connection is glorified as a measure of worth, the busier, the more online, the more respected, choosing disconnection can be misunderstood as laziness or irresponsibility. But wise empaths know it is an act of courage. Courage to stop. Courage to go against collective habits. Courage to choose silence instead of noise. Give yourself such a day with no social media, no emails, no calls, a day just for nature, your notebook, yourself. You will discover the world is not only chaos. Hidden in silence is a very different order, the order of the soul. And that is the third secret of wise empaths, knowing how to disconnect, to restore, to see clearly, and to walk forward with fresher, purer energy. Tomorrow, if you could choose to disconnect, what would you do first? Turn off your phone, go for a walk, or simply sit listening to yourself? Share it in the comments to see how many souls resonate with yours. Number 4. Dialogue with the inner self, active inner dialogue. After empaths learn to disconnect and create spaces of stillness away from external influences, the next step of growth is learning how to turn inward and converse with their own inner self. Because stillness is meaningless if it isn't used for listening. Disconnection takes empaths away from chaos, but inner dialogue is what helps them recognize themselves, distinguishing between emotions that truly belong to them and fragments they have accidentally absorbed from others. Empaths possess a unique capacity for empathy, but this gift carries risk. They easily confuse their own emotions with those of others. A sad look, a casual comment, a heavy atmosphere, all can make an empath believe that sadness, anxiety, or stress are their own. And when they cannot distinguish, they shoulder everything, living with burdens that don't belong to them. This is where wise empaths differ. They practice inner dialogue, turning sensitivity into clear intuition rather than a burden. Carl Jung affirmed, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Inner dialogue is precisely this act of looking inward. It is not anxious self-talk in the head, but a conscious process, sitting down, writing, or whispering questions and answers aloud. A kind of conversation with oneself, linking mind and soul. Picture the empath as a lighthouse keeper at night. Waves crash, ship signals echo, distant lights flicker. Without awareness, the keeper cannot tell which signals matter, which are just noise. But once they observe and discern, they keep the light steady, guiding themselves and others. So it is with empaths. Inner dialogue helps them know which signals are true guidance of the soul wave rising and stirring your entire inner world, all because of one person's presence. You can't explain why, from the first meeting, they feel so familiar. Why a single glance makes you feel as though you've seen a private part of yourself. This pull doesn't come from their perfection, but because they touch something you cannot ignore. This is what people call a twin flame. A twin flame is not your other half who makes you whole. They are a mirror reflecting you, both the beauty and the hidden shadows. They don't arrive to make you peaceful, but to stir you, to make you look deeply into yourself and ask questions you thought were already answered. Carl Jung never directly used the term twin flame, but his theories on the unconscious, the shadow, archetypes, and the individuation process all point to this. Some connections are not here to love in the usual way. They are here to transform. They shake every layer of defense in you. Without trying, just by being there, they make you see yourself more clearly. At times, you want to get closer. At times, you want to run away. But deep down, you know you can't pretend you've never met them. Not because they are too special, but because they have made you see an essential part of yourself. This connection can form in just a moment, a glance, a sentence. But from that moment on, everything changes. You feel both anticipation and fear, the urge to move closer and the instinct to step back. And you realize this feeling is not simply liking someone. It is meeting yourself through another. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Sometimes what we call destiny is the call of parts within us that have been forgotten or never fully lived, now being awakened. A twin flame does not come to complete you. They come to remind you that you have always been complete, only you haven't allowed yourself to live that way. They may hurt you, but not to wound you, rather, to make you peel away the layers you've worn for too long just to feel safe. They don't bring you answers. They bring you the reason to start searching. And this journey, no matter how long it lasts or how it ends, will change you. Not to turn you into someone else, but to bring you back to yourself. Clearer, more truthful, and freer. Because in the end, a twin flame is not just a love story. It is a soul encounter where you learn to love another and, more importantly, learn to love yourself. And if you are in such a connection, perhaps you are ready to walk that journey where love is not just an emotion, but the growth of the soul. In the next part, we will explore the 5 most profound stages of transformation in the twin flame journey, the turning points anyone in this kind of love must face. Not to hold on to them, but to hold on to yourself. Number 2. The 5 stages of twin flame love. Stage 1. The soul's recognition, when the soul sees itself through another person. There are encounters unlike anything you have ever experienced. Not based on logic, not on shared interests, not on any reasonable cause. Yet from the very first moment, you feel as though you've known that person for a very long time, even if it's the first time you've met. You cannot explain that feeling with logic. You just know something within you has shifted. A familiarity, deep and undeniable, so real you cannot ignore it. Carl Jung called this moment archetypal recognition. At the deepest layer of the human psyche, he believed there are archetypal images stored in the collective unconscious. When 2 people share the same archetypal frequency, carrying a similar kind of inner energy. They recognize each other not through the mind, but through the soul. And that is when your soul recognizes itself through another person. Imagine there is a room inside you that no one has stepped into for a long time. Everything is still there, intact, but covered in dust. There are picture frames yet to be hung, windows blocked from the light, and sunlight itself forgotten. Then one day, someone appears. They don't clean, they don't ask, they don't try to do anything. They simply step in, gently, as if they have been here before. And strangely, the room quietly lights up, not because they brought the light, but because their very presence reminds you this place is still alive, still beautiful, and worthy of being opened. That moment is not about meeting the right person. It's about your soul, for the first time in a long while, being seen through another human being. A young woman once shared that the shortest relationship of her life was also the most unforgettable, not because it lasted, but because it awakened her deeply. They met at a small gathering of mutual friends, spoke for less than an hour, but she left the party with a strange feeling, as and you know the new journey has begun. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The soul's recognition is the first door. It is not loud, does not require a reason, and has no clear proof to convince you that this is the important person. But once it opens, you cannot go back to being who you were. Because you haven't just met a person, you have met yourself, not the persona you built to fit into the world, not the image you maintained to be loved, but your raw, honest, unnamed self. That resonance, what you feel, is not truly about them. It comes from the moment you first touch something deeper within yourself, something no past relationship has awakened. Their presence wakes you up. But the next journey of transformation, confrontation, and return will be entirely yours. That connection may not become the love story you hoped for, and the most beautiful part is, even if they leave, you still keep the most important thing, the part of you that was once lost, now returned. Sometimes that's someone you've met only a few times, but remember vividly. Sometimes it's a short-lived relationship that makes you rethink your entire life. Sometimes it's just a casual conversation, but from that moment on, you no longer see yourself the same way. If you've ever met someone who made you feel like that, you don't have to share details. Just leave a single dot in the comments, so someone reading knows they're not alone in that experience. Because there are things that don't need analysis or explanation. You only need to know they're real, and that they happened. Stage 2. The mirror of illusion. When you fall in love with your own projection. After the soul has been awakened, a new stage begins. One that seems to be the most beautiful moment of love. Everything feels magical. The other person seems to understand you without words. Every text message, every glance, every gentle touch makes you tremble. You believe you've met the right person. And this time, without a doubt, this is true love. But there is one thing Carl Jung once emphasized. Projection is one of the commonest psychic phenomena. The unconscious, with all the parts of you that have not been fully lived or integrated, will begin to find a way to express itself when you meet your twin flame. But it does not do this directly. Instead, it borrows the other person's face to reflect back what you are longing for, lacking, or have not dared to acknowledge within yourself. You are not loving them as a real human being. You are loving the image of them in your mind, an idealized version you have unconsciously constructed. This person carries all the qualities you have always dreamed of: understanding, strength, peace, stability, unconditional love for you. But the truth is, you are in love with the unexpressed light in yourself. You admire their freedom, perhaps because deep down you are still living too cautiously. You are drawn to their calmness, maybe because you have been too weary from a turbulent inner life. You feel they are a healer, perhaps because you have never truly been healed. And then, unconsciously, you begin to project. You don't realize it. You still believe you understand them, that you love them, but in fact, you are stepping into an emotional space woven from your dreams, your gaps, and the unaccepted parts within yourself. The story of J. Gatsby in The Great Gatsby is a classic literary example of projection. Gatsby did not love Daisy, the real flesh and blood woman with her limits and selfishness. He loved the image of Daisy in his mind, the symbol of his dream, beauty, and an idealized past. He built his entire life around that dream, hosting lavish parties, amassing wealth, all to impress the woman whom, in truth, he never truly knew. When he finally touched the real Daisy, fragile, vague, unable to love him back as he dreamed, everything collapsed. And his death, through Jung's lens, was not just a love tragedy, but the collapse of an unacknowledged illusion. I once heard the story of a woman who fell in love with a man online for nearly a year. They met only a few times but spoke every day. In her eyes, he was deep, calm, different from any of her past relationships. She felt safe, listened to, understood. She believed he was the special person the universe sent. But when they began living closer to each other, she saw that he was not as stable as she had thought, often avoided problems, and did not truly want deep commitment. She was disappointed, but the deepest pain was not about him. It was about losing the image she had lived with for so long in her mind. She realized she had not loved him. She had loved the version of him in her mind, an ideal man built from everything she had always wanted, someone who listens, someone stable, someone mature. When he no longer played that role, the love either you leave because you feel they are not the same anymore, or you stay, but with eyes more awakened. And at this moment, you begin to understand that twin flame love does not come simply to make you happy. It comes to wake you up, to make you face the truth. And the first truth is, you cannot love anyone fully if you have not dared to see yourself honestly. When illusion dissolves, you may feel pain, but it is the pain of awakening. And here, the real journey is only just beginning. Stage 3. The fall from fantasy, when illusions shatter and you must face yourself. At first, you believe you have found the great love of your life. Your emotions burst. The world suddenly feels more alive, and this person, even though you don't really know them deeply, makes you feel seen, understood, and loved without effort. You tell yourself, this must be destiny. But then, over time, the first cracks appear. Their patience starts to fade. Sweet messages become less frequent. Gestures that once made you feel loved turn into things you wait for in weary anticipation. You begin to feel disappointed, easily hurt, wondering, have they changed? Or, did I do something wrong? And sometimes, The answer is not about them, but about you. Because perhaps this is the moment you are falling from the dream you built yourself. Carl Jung called this stage disillusionment. But the truth is, you are not disillusioned with them. You are disillusioned with the image you once placed on them. A beautiful, perfect image, exactly as you longed for, but not born from their real self. And that is deeply painful. Painful not only because they seem different, but because you must face yourself, the disappointment of realizing you loved a version of them that never truly existed. A woman once wrote to the channel saying she had loved a man much older than her. From the first meeting, she felt drawn into his quiet, confident energy. He didn't talk much, but whenever they conversed, she felt as if she was touched at the deepest level of her heart. She thought he was mature, stable, and experienced. But after a few months of dating, she realized he avoided emotions, didn't want commitment, and often retreated into silence whenever issues arose. She was heartbroken. But what hurt most was not his silence. It was that he no longer matched the image of the steady man she had admired. And then she realized she was the one who had written that image. He had never promised it. Disillusionment is not a bad thing. In Jung's view, it is a necessary turning point for you to start seeing the real person, both theirs and your own. Because real love cannot grow in a space full of illusions. It only begins when you dare to walk through disappointment and stay with eyes cleared. In twin flame love, the disillusionment stage can be more intense than in ordinary relationships, because you once felt you had found everything. You once thought, it can't be wrong, this person is the other half of my soul. But the higher the expectation, the deeper the disappointment. Not because they are bad, but because they are not who you imagined. At that point, many will choose to leave, because the pain and hurt seem too big to continue. But there is another path, harder but braver, to stay, to learn to see them as they truly are, and to see yourself without the painted colors. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When you see them avoid issues, ask, what have I been avoiding in myself? When you feel they are not listening, ask, am I listening to myself? This stage is like a mirror, and if you are brave enough not to break it, you will see very real parts of yourself that you have long neglected. Not everyone is ready to go through this stage, because admitting you have loved a dream rather than the real person takes courage. It means discarding the beautiful image you worked so hard to build. You must admit, I don't really know them, and I don't fully know myself. This can make you feel empty, as if you have lost something important. But sometimes, what you have lost is not love, but illusion. And sometimes, after it all, you may feel grateful for disillusionment. Only then can you truly see them without fog, without expecting them to be someone or forcing them to play your savior. You see them as a human, with both light and shadow, with limits and wounds. And if at that moment you still feel love, that love has taken a step closer to truth. Stage 4. The sacred distance, when you learn to love without holding on. Twin flame. Love, after stages of intense passion and deep disillusionment, reaches an important transformation, separation. But unlike an ordinary breakup, where people leave because the feelings are gone, separation in the twin flame journey is a sacred ritual, a silent space, not for running away, but for growing up. Carl Jung called this the moment each person enters individuation, the process of returning to the true self, where you no longer see yourself through the eyes of another, no longer react from images distorted by expectations. Public figures, we see similar journeys. Look at the relationship between Emma Watson and her long-term partner, Leo Robinson. Despite media attention, they have always maintained a significant quiet space between their private lives and their love life. Emma once shared, "I need time alone to understand who I am, not as someone's girlfriend." This separation does not mean leaving each other, but rather both understanding that loving someone does not mean merging with them, but growing alongside them. Separation is the greatest test in twin flame love. Not to see if you can keep the other person, but to see if you can keep yourself. When you no longer have their presence to blame or to rely on, you finally look back. How have I loved? What have I neglected in myself? And what you find may make you cry. But it is that very thing that will save you. Carl Jung never saw separation as negative. In the collective unconscious, withdrawing into darkness has always been a necessary phase to prepare for a stronger return. You must enter the desert of the soul, where no one is beside you to hold your hand, to learn to walk on your own feet. Neuroscience also explains this. When someone experiences separation in love, the brain regions controlling habits and emotional reactions, especially the prefrontal cortex and amygdala, become highly active. But if the person is patient enough not to react by clinging and instead spends time observing themselves, the brain reactivates the regions for self-awareness and emotional recovery. Scientists call this emotional self-regulation. This not only helps you stay calmer, but also helps you re-establish boundaries and personal needs more deeply than ever before. In that place, you learn to listen to the loneliness you once filled with someone else's presence. You learn to have dinner alone without feeling lacking. You learn to get through a sad day without messaging someone for reassurance. And then you realize, love is not possession, It's giving the other person enough space so they can also be themselves. If you are in the separation stage, you are not alone. Many are walking this path not to lose each other, but to find themselves again. And if you are patient enough to walk through this silence, you will arrive at a place no one can predict, where love is no longer craving, but a free presence. Stage 5. The return to wholeness. When you come back to yourself and choose love freely. After everything, the first spark, beautiful illusions, disillusionment, hurt and distance, you begin to see everything with different eyes. No longer the enamored gaze of someone seeking another to fill their emptiness, but the awakened gaze of someone who once lost their way and has now begun to find themselves again. This stage is no longer about seeking love as salvation, but about realizing true love is not something to hold on to, but something chosen each day, zrenia, from a place of fullness within. The other person may still be present somewhere, or may have left your life, but the biggest change is in you now. No longer dependent on validation, no longer trading yourself to keep someone, no longer loving from fear or lack. You are now a version of yourself who can stand alone, yet still remain open to receive. There's a beautiful image close to this journey, a lotus rising from the mud, reaching up to the water's surface and blooming in silence. The lotus's beauty does not come from where it grows, but from its choice to rise above the mud without being stained. Love within you now is the same. It is no longer the clumsy love of the early, unformed days. It is no longer love to compensate for what's missing. It is love that has gone through darkness, endured trials, accepted both light and pain, and because of that, has matured. You begin to understand love is no longer we belong to each other, but we choose to walk together, even if we do not need each other to survive. A woman once shared that after years of being tangled in intense relationships, she entered a long, quiet period without attachment to anyone, not because she had lost faith in love, but because, for the first time, her greatest desire was to learn to love herself first. Her habits were rewritten from small things. Time alone was no longer filled with emptiness, but with gratitude. Then one day, love appeared, as gentle as a cool breeze after a scorching summer. This person did not make her heart chaotic, nor did they make her lose her direction. But beside them, she felt the freedom to be herself, without acting, without forcing herself to fit. For the first time, love came without fear. That is also when you know you have returned, and you also realize, not everyone who passes through your life is meant to stay. Some appear only to touch a hidden part of you, the part you once forgot existed. They don't come to be your other half, but to remind you that you have always been whole. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to be meet yours, maybe a completely new person, maybe a familiar face that once broke your heart. But this time, your gaze is no longer naive, seeing them as the whole world. You see them simply as a human being with all their beauty and limits. A faint smile appears, not because they came back, not because they left, but because you know, no matter what, you will be fine. Because now, you truly have yourself. That is the final gift of twin flame love. Not someone to be with forever, but a journey that helps you remove the mask, let go of expectations, break free from the dream, so you can love with a real heart. Not a heart needing someone to fill it, but a heart healed, full, and strong enough to love, without fear of loss. Thank you for being here until the very last moments, gentle, but full of meaning. Not everyone is brave enough to enter a journey where love is no longer just sweet feelings, but a sharp mirror, forcing you to face, to shed, to grow. You may have once thought, true love is when two people belong to each other. But after it all, you will realize, some people are sent not to stay, but to touch a deep part you once forgot. Not to complete you, but to awaken you. Not to build a we, but to bring you back to rebuilding yourself, from within. If something in this journey has made you pause, to breathe deeper, to reflect on a relationship, or simply to realize how far you have come, then perhaps you have truly begun your return journey. And if something touched you, don't forget to share it with someone who needs it, so they too may take one step closer to their truest self. Because sometimes just one moment of being touched is enough to change everything.